Hello and welcome back. Today we're looking at changes in populations. We can also call this natural hazards and limiting factors because that's really what causes those changes within the population. And again, you have these. So you can watch the video when you so choose. We're not going to go over that part. A natural hazard. When we hear the word natural hazard, we think of something that happens on its own. That would be the natural part. And hazard is something that hazards are bad things. And in part that's true, but we define it as any naturally occurring event that has an effect on the ecosystem. Think about that for a second. That has an effect on the ecosystem. Effects aren't always bad. What do you think about that? Now notice this is a natural hazard. In the news, we hear a lot about natural disasters. Okay? Sometimes the news likes the word disaster because it pops. But a lot of the events themselves are the same. So the ones that we worry about most, we look at floods, we look at hurricanes, wildfires, landslides, tornadoes. We call them hazards because sometimes they can be good. All right? It has an effect. So for example, wildfires destroy habitats, but they also promote seed germination in some plant species. For example, pine trees those seeds have to have the heat and pressure from the fire to open up the seed casing so that the seed itself can grow and we get the new tree. The wildfires also produce situations in which, we lose some of those giant trees. Okay, we lose some stuff, but we also get new growth right afterwards with really rich, nutrient-rich soil that does wondrous things. Okay, and the animals come back. They come back. Just because they leave, in the midst of the fire, that doesn't mean that they're never going to be there again. They come back. And that's a big thing. Okay? So this is another video for you to watch at your own viewing pleasure. You don't need to see me stand here talking to you about how to read a video or how to watch a video. Climate. I'm sure if you've really read any newspaper or listened to the news ever, you've heard that climate change is, we're kind of all freaking out about it. But let's figure out what climate itself is. So climate is the temperature and the amount of rainfall in an environment. Guys, climate is just how hot is it and how much rain do they get. That's it. How hot, how much water. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Here's where people start to worry a little bit, or this is why it's making the news sometimes. Because the changes in the climate affect the populations in that area. So you've heard that, the ice in the Arctic is melting and the polar bears are dying. Okay? So there's a change in the climate. So there's a change in the temperature, which is affecting the population. Polar bears can't survive without the ice. That's where they live. Okay? If you ever throw something in my class, there will be consequences. For the sake of this video, I'm throwing a pen to turn the lights back on. Hold on. It picked up my movement first. Even better. So, it's not, the change in climate so much isn't the big thing. It's how it affects the populations. Notice that effect here starts with an A. Okay? We're going to work and make sure that grammar is correct. The effect is how it impacts something else. Lovely video. Again, on your own time, in between classes, as you're sitting in the car waiting to pick up a sibling at another school, during the drive-through, waiting to pick up dinner, during a commercial on TV if you don't stream everything live, or if you stream it live and it still has commercials. Those are all great times to watch these videos. Okay, limiting factors. To limit means to reduce. We're putting a constraint on something. Okay? We can't have less, we can't have more. Something that prevents something else from happening. It's a limit. A factor is variable. Something that can be controlled or changed. So a limiting factor is anything that prevents a population from growing. We're not talking about all populations. We're talking about a specific population. So think back to our levels of organization. We're looking at the low level. We're looking at the specific level. We're looking at all the white-tailed deer, not the deer and the squirrels and the trees. We're just looking at one of those populations. Okay. And it's growth. Not from existing, from growth. Okay. Now, that limiting factor, it can be biotic, meaning they don't have any more food. You have to have enough food to feed everybody. It could be predators. That big bad wolf in the Three Little Pigs story, yeah, he would be a predator. More wolves mean less pigs. Okay? And or abiotic factors. Soil quality, especially with plants. Plants need the soil quality to be good. Water supply. You know, in Africa, the elephants migrate constantly. They're constantly on the move. They're not doing that because they feel like it. They're doing it so that they can go where the water is. You have to have water. So they migrate, they move. That limiting factor related to where they live at that point is based on where the water is. Okay? So they can be living, which are biotic. They can be non-living, which are abiotic. Sometimes it's both. There can be more than one limiting factor in an environment at the same time. Here's the big one. The carrying capacity. The carrying capacity, it's the maximum number of organisms that can survive in a particular ecosystem. Now, they're not saying what type of organism. It depends on what the carrying capacity you're looking at. Okay? If you're looking at the number of cats that can go into my house, I would say 0 because I don't want a cat. Okay? If you're looking at people in agriculture or farming, they're very concerned about the carrying capacity because they would like the maximum number of animals that they can have and be successful because that's how they make their money. Okay? I have some friends of mine, they are cattle farmers. And they have to look at how much land they have compared to how much space one of their cows takes up to make sure that there are enough resources for all of their cows. If the cows don't gain enough weight, they don't make much money. So the carrying capacity really becomes a big issue. And we'll get more into that in a little bit, but some countries have put in policies about their human populations in regards to the carrying capacity. Hunting is another reason why there are, tag limits or tag numbers for the number of organisms per species that you can hunt each season. That affects the carrying capacity. You can't kill all the deer for deer meat. We have to have some deer. But coyotes are open season. Right? Yeah. No, I don't hunt, but I have friends that do. If I'm wrong, shoot me an email and tell me. Okay? But all of those things affect the carrying capacity. How many organisms can that ecosystem support? There's a virtual lab here that I would like for you to do. Okay. The law of the fittest. There's a phrase at my house. He who eats the fastest gets the most. Or she. What that means is there's a set amount of food on the table at dinner. If you want seconds, you better eat fast enough to get those seconds. The same concept applies here and within ecosystems. When plants and animals compete for the resources, some are going to get them, some of them aren't. This isn't a buffet. I mean, yeah, sometimes it's like a buffet. But at some point, the closer you get to the carrying capacity, the less there is per person or per organism. So yeah, when they have to compete, some of them aren't going to get it. And that's the survival of the fittest. So those that get what they need, they will survive. Those that do not have two options. Option one, they're going to die. And some other organism, typically a decomposer, will then consume that organism. Okay. Option two, they need to get their little animal tushies and find another ecosystem. They need to move. They need to relocate. They need to find somewhere where they can survive. Both of these happen. Both of these happen. I have plants in my front yard. The soil quality at my house is not good. And so generally they die because they're plants. They can't get up and walk away. But something interesting happened this summer. One morning I found probably 40 worms on my driveway. Guess where they were trying to get? So to increase the soil quality, I had bought a whole bunch of worms and I put them in my garden bed because I knew that the soil quality wasn't great and the worms could help. They were all trying to leave that garden bed where I had put them and go towards the grass that had more resources. Okay. Those little worms were trying to relocate. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. But there weren't enough resources. Those that had the strength to get all the way across my sidewalk into the grass made it. Those that didn't have the energy to get there did not make it. And those that could not move did not make it. Now, that's looking at some plants and earthworms. The same thing happens to larger organisms as well. All right. That's what we've got for natural hazards and limiting factors. There's a couple assignments that you're going to do with these. If you have questions, ask your teachers. I know that face isn't pretty. You'll probably see it again, sorry. But I hope that you enjoyed it. If you didn't, at least thank you for watching, and we will see you later.